There's a way of telling lies by means of strictly speaking nothing but true things. So these Democratic leaders who said you have an obligation as a service member to disobey an unlawful order.
You must refuse illegal orders.
That is exactly right. So welcome to another episode of Clown World. The world continues to beclown itself, and we continue to comment on it. Recently, of recent memory, 6 Democratic poobahs made a video that made a splash.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
Against American citizens. You must refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
In which video they called upon service members to disobey unlawful orders given by Donald Trump. They weren't specific. They didn't talk about which orders were unlawful. Had they done so, then you could have a debate. They could have said something like, anybody involved in the operations of blowing up the drug boats in the Gulf of Mexico, those are unlawful orders and you need to disobey them. And then you would have a debate over whether or not those were unlawful orders. What they did instead was just say, you have an obligation to disobey unlawful orders, and then they refused to comment on what unlawful orders had been issued. This was altogether too coy. There's a way of telling lies by means of strictly speaking nothing but true things. So let's say an NSA student has been away from home for a couple of months, and they are asked by their mom in a phone conversation, how's it going? And they're taking a class from me, let's say, and they said something like, yeah, it's going great out here. Pastor Wilson taught his class entirely sober today. Now, everything about that statement is true. There's no falsehood in the statement, but the statement is placed in such a framing as to imply that the other times I wasn't teaching the class sober, right? So it's a lie. You can tell a lie by telling the truth. So these Democratic leaders who said you have an obligation as a service member to disobey an unlawful order, that is exactly right. When I was in the Navy, I was on a submarine, and the Navy didn't believe in reading material in the John, or what we call the head. Or rather, they didn't believe in magazines or that kind of reading material in the head. Inside every stall, however, was a big poster of excerpts from the Universal Code of Military Justice, because they wanted everybody who went to the head to spend their time on the John studying the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And I remember that in the lower left-hand corner of that poster was the section that talked about the necessity for disobeying unlawful orders. It is absolutely necessary for service members to disobey an order to commit a war crime, for example. That is essential. Everybody agrees with that. Everybody thinks that. But if you just put it out there, unlawful orders generally, and you don't specify, then what you're doing is implying unlawful orders, but you're putting yourself beyond the possibility of refutation. Right? You can't do that. You're not playing square.